Wow. Thank you so much. Dr. Kola, you want to add something?
Before James goes, of course, there are so many questions which are coming. Even if you want to answer them, you'll stay here until midnight because there are so many questions. So,
Yeah.
GIDI, just take a small highlight of some of those questions, then James can be able to answer them. And then, James, you are the one closing because you are the one who is going to be declaring the winners. And then we give them, and in 15 minutes we shall be done. It's not long from now. But before you answer the question, as you sample the question, let me just emphasize what James has said has really moved me. We have been telling students that there are two ways only to make money. And because the biggest brain in investments are here, I want to test whether I am right or not. There are only two ways to make money. Either you tax, which the government does, or you sell. I mean sell, I'm employed in Strathmore. I sell my skills to Strathmore community. If they find attractive to buy it, they buy it and they pay me. So whether you are employed or not, you are selling. So to learn how to sell your skills at this age, James says he wishes he knew this early on. Some of us, some students here are 20 years old, 21 years old, 22 years old. You have learned what James says he wishes he had, because he says, if you cannot make money, you cannot even make a spreadsheet. You cannot defer tax, which you don't need to pay because you have sold nothing. So I think that is a very, very noble and key highlight. And as Julia said before, if you can sell insurance where people don't want to buy, you can literally sell anything. And even to add this very clearly, I'm talking, and I'm afraid because Jim McPhee is my boss in Strathmore and also in Wanafunzi. The main point, as when I was negotiating my contract, I was among the youngest faculty to be employed in the business school, because business school requires a lot of experiences. I remembered, James, how I negotiated my contract was key, because I had been taught how to sell my skill. So that my contract, when things are tough, I shall look at it and smile and say, surely I knew how to sell my skills. So students, whether you want to become an employee, or you want to run a business, or you want to invest, learn how to sell. So over to you, GD. I don't know whether, Jim, you have something to comment.
Did you say Jim or did you say GIDI?
Jim.
Oh, okay. You know, one of the questions which is coming up again and again is, how much money do I have to start with in order to become a millionaire?
Oh, yeah.
Now, you know, let's take a good example, a fellow by the name of Alan Sugar. His father was a tailor, and he was living in the East End of London. And in those days, to get a civil service job where you're being paid £23 a week in the UK was, you know, a mark of stability. So his dad, I don't think he ever went to university, Alan Sugar, but his dad said, okay, now son, look, you know, go and get a job in the civil service and you get your £23 a week. So in fact, after about 2 months, he came home one day and he said, look, Dad, I am absolutely sick and tired of this bureaucratic work which is adding nothing to society. I'm going to go into business. And his father dissuaded him. He said, look, you know, don't do that. You're going to go bankrupt. You're blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he said, Dad, I've made the decision. You are not going to stop me. And so he started off basically with nothing. But he was doing exactly what you're talking about. He was actually started selling things. And after a short while, he was bringing home so much money that his dad said, look, are you robbing banks or what? You know, where the hell are you getting all of this money from? So the first thing that you've got to do is to identify, what do people need? James was telling us this exactly. Where is there a need? You've got to identify that. You don't make something. I remember even I was having a discussion with Mr. Ruto, the DP, once, and he said, look, Jim, we can grow anything in Kenya. I said, look, it's no good growing anything. Can you sell it? So this is of absolute importance. And sometimes you got to remember, what's in my head may not actually be in the same thing as the reality. So I've got to have a discerning eye to see what exactly am I going to sell. Now, once you do that, then obviously you've got to have your pricing correct. But you see, the point is, you've got to be ready. You know, this guy that I showed this video, he said, look, you've got to be able to work 80 hours a week. I remember, you know, my third audit in Ernst & Young, I was doing Kenya Reinsurance Corporation. It was a very much small organization then. This was my third audit. I was doing the audit on my own. And the chief financial officer left the company the day I started my audit. I discovered a huge mistake in the accounts. So I was working until 3 o'clock every morning over about a 3 or 4 week period. And, you know, I said, this is part of learning. We got, you know, I used to have a colleague who in Ernst & Young, his dad was an incredibly successful businessman in Calatina. But sometimes he would come home, he'd have an idea, but anyway, going back to Alan Sugar, you know, he became an incredibly successful person. Why? He identified what people needed, he made what they wanted, and he now is one of the richest people in the UK. He's worth £1,000 million. That's the value of his wealth. Wow. So, you know, now, how much money did he start off with? With nothing. With nothing, you know? So I think it's important here to remember, you know, what you've got to do is you've got to identify something that people need. And then you do that, and you do it better than anyone else. And, you know, I remember once there was a guy who owned a business, and he wanted a student to come and work in the business. I said, what skills does this fellow need to know? The only thing I want this man to know is the following. If someone comes in and asks for a particular thing, which we don't have, he writes it down. So that the next guy who asks for the same thing, he will in fact find it in that particular shop. So we got to be really discerning. We got to open our eyes. We got to look around. And, you know, I'm not a good business person. I don't have that skill. You know, I'm not an entrepreneur. I can tell you how to count your money and even account for deferred tax, as James was saying. But the thing is, I'm not a good business person. So, you know, I wouldn't sleep at night. But what I can do is I can tell you, you've got to, you know, where people see a problem, you see an opportunity. And this is the great thing about what these young people are doing, selling insurance. If you can sell insurance, as you were saying, Fred, you can sell anything. You can sell ice to the Eskimos. So that's what we got to learn how to do.
Wow.
Is that okay? Do you want me to say anything more? The only thing is I'm a man of many words, so I don't want to bore people.
Now it's just about getting James Mworia answering some questions that has been put to him directly.
Mm. Yeah, several questions have been posted on the comment section, because this show is live on YouTube and Facebook, and quite a number of people are posting their questions here. Some have, you know, have rolled back. Let me just check some. I think most of them want to know, how much money do you need to start a business or
Zero.
something?
Zero. To me, actually,
Zero.
and people start businesses sometimes with 50 shillings.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, you know, you got to see, you know, in fact, Fred can actually tell you his story. He runs a school in Mombasa. And, you know, I can't remember exactly how much he started with. I think it was it 800 shillings or something, Fred? That story you told me when we were sitting in Kisumu?
Yes.
800 shillings. He now runs a school which has 650 students in Mombasa.
Wow.
So the position here, okay, is, you know, he thought, now, where is there a need? And, you know, he identified that need. He used the 800 shillings just to print pamphlets. He advertised the business. That business was up and running, and he now employs, and many people have actually imitated him, because one thing we're very, very good at in Kenya is imitating other people. But, you know, it's you know, in this case, it's one of those things that, you know, he used his akili. He said, look, man, I'm sleeping here with mosquitoes biting me in Mombasa. How do I get out of this? So he, in fact, you know, went and printed, he had an advertisement, and he started up that school using his brains. And Fred, you got to tell that story sometime too. You got to even write a book about it. You know, My Journey in Entrepreneurship by Fred Ogola, doctor.
Thank you. So let me hear what James thinks too.
No. I totally agree with Jim, and I encourage you, when you have some time, look for this book called The Customer Funded Business by John Mullins.
Funded business.
The Customer Funded Business. The cheapest source of capital is from your customer. And if you focus on the customer experience, and I'll give you a real example, even in traditional businesses like real estate, where we do real estate development. I remember when we were doing Vipingo, I asked my team, a guy called Ken, go down there and see what people need and see what price they're prepared to pay for. So he came and said, you know, apartments have been sold at 4 million for 1 bedroom. I said, now, let's do one for 2 million. So the design team now has to work backwards from the customer experience. Now the design is in reverse. And we launched a product for 2 million shillings. We initially thought we'd sell 100. We've sold 500, and they're all paid for. So that project, we've not taken a single shilling of a loan. In fact, we have money in the bank. So the customer is prepared to pay you in advance if the idea makes sense. What I've learned is that if you find yourself having to raise a lot of capital, there's probably something wrong with the idea. And this is something I wish I knew earlier. So there's a lot of focus on capital raising as opposed to focus on selling the product to the customer. I wish we all learned that. I think that's what I've learned. That's where probably the focus should be. And now, even in the digital marketplace, a lot of customers have to pay in advance for you to conclude the transaction. So you then use the customer's money. So as long as you have the right mindset, you have the skills, you are reliable, you are honest, you build your name, you don't take the customer's money and deliver something less than what you had promised. You know, you build a brand by delivering above the expectations of the customer. So then they can trust you. Because the thing that is in short supply today is trust. People don't trust business people because many people want to take a shortcut. They want to offer X and deliver X minus 4 or X divided by 4. And you want to take a shortcut and think you can build a business in the shortest time possible. And the greatest value in the business is not the dividend. A lot of the companies we have sold, you know, people ask me, why did you exit these businesses? We don't invest to get a dividend. We invest to create a valuable enterprise that we sell. So for example, last year we sold our stake in the bottling companies. The highest dividend we got in a year is 400 million shillings. That might sound a lot, but we sold the business for close to 20 billion shillings. So it would have taken us 50 years to get that dividend. Now, for you to build a business valued at 20 billion shillings, you must build for the long term. You must build core enterprise value in that entity. And that's how sort of I've learned you create wealth. So to my mind, capital is never the constraint. The constraint is not focusing on the customer, having the wrong mindset, not adding sufficient value, not doing it better than the next person. You know, you've had your friend talking, having no passion. You know, for you to be really delight your customer, you must have passion. As Jim said, you must strive to be the very best at what it is that you're doing. To do that, you must bring in an extraordinary degree of effort. For you to have the energy to bring in an extraordinary degree of effort, you must have passion in what you're doing. You must bring an extraordinary degree of energy in that which you are doing. And that is what makes, and that's where the shortage is. The constraint is on that side of the equation, not on the capital. With that, then you'll have quite a bit of capital available to you.
Some people are asking for my contacts, and just so that you know, that person who's asking for my contacts, my telephone number is 727-857-917. It wasn't a lady, James, it was a man. You know, so you know, just so that it's business, not unsocial distancing.
Business only. Okay.
So, Gidi, there's another question here that are we mentoring young entrepreneurs for business? And that is not a question. That's why we're here. Maybe, James, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, actually, no. In this forum I was on Friday, we discussed that issue, and I think the conclusion was actually, perhaps as businesses, we need to spend more time mentoring than even availing capital, because capital is not the issue. You know, there's a time we were doing, wanted to invest. I think Jim was still on the board in startups, and sort of to encourage them, and we set aside some capital, and we went through a very rigorous process. Got 10 startups. We lost money in all of them, and we probably, if we had spent that effort in mentorship, in helping businesses better connect with the customers, I think my lesson there is that we may have had better outcomes. And that's what convinced me that the constraint is not capital. I think anyone who wants to support small businesses more maybe better off on the mentorship side, especially where successful business people come, who have actually been, you know, bootstrapped themselves up and actually spent time mentoring. So I want to commend Wanafunzi and Fred and Jim for what you're doing, because what I'm explaining, I didn't read in a book. I've lost some shareholders' money learning this, so it's very expensive knowledge over a long period of time, which I wish I knew a few years back. Maybe the organization would be a lot more successful than it is today.